Good afternoon. I'm your host, Dr. Jim. It's a beautiful day today in Houston, Texas, September 25th, 2021. We have a wonderful, excellent guest today, Dr. John Shufeldt, and we have excellent guest panel today. So he's an accomplished physician, author, successful entrepreneur. He has a law degree, an MBA as well. What more could a mother want, John? And he was president of our medical school class of 1986, Chicago Medical School. Together, we will discuss his book that covers not just how to practice medicine entrepreneurially. The name of the book is The Entrepreneurial Prescription, Entrepreneur Prescription. Here's my one prop, John. I didn't bring a lot of props. I didn't do a good job with my entrepreneurship, but here's his book, and I bought it and I read it, and it's a great book, by the way. You can get it from Amazon. I read it in one or 2 days, and believe me, I'm not a good reader. It's a good reference guide too. I enjoyed it. So welcome to the show, Dr. Shufeldt. Welcome everyone else as well, all the other guests that are here today. John, before we talk about your book specifically, can you tell us what an entrepreneur is? So we have some references.
Sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of different definitions. In my mind, an entrepreneur is someone who sees a problem and attempts to solve it in the hopes of the greater good for themselves and society.
John, in your book, you shocked me by saying that you feel like you're only reached 40% of your potential. Can you explain what more you have to do with your career?
You know, I use that quote a lot, but I do think that, you know, how many people have we all seen? I always use the example of the checkout person at the grocery store, and they're really busy and they're putting all the stuff in the bag and they're just crushing it and think, oh my God, I can't imagine doing anything else. And then you see other people, and I use like Navy SEALs for an example, who are, you know, just cold and wet and tired and getting shot at, and you think, okay, there has to be a lot more many of us can do. And so I've always had this thought of when I feel like I'm at my end of my personal limit, I always think that there's probably something more I can reach, because there's certainly people who have gone far beyond whatever I've gone beyond and had far more difficulties and challenges, and they seem to make it work. And whether it's because it's been life and death, they just have more resilience and stamina than I do, I'm not sure. But I always say I can go farther than I've gone previously.
So you're talking about not just your professional, but also your personal growth, because Navy SEALs are very driven physically.
Right.
But they may not have the balance between the two.
Yeah, but I also think it's like the Green Berets and Delta. They're all the intellectual warriors as well. But I just get the sense we all have a lot more than we think we do. We have more gas in the tank than we think.
How do you balance your personal and professional goals?
You know, I've probably veered towards more professional goals, candidly. And I've tried to keep up personally. I have two great kids, still married to the, lovely Renee, who I met in medical school. And fortunately for me, she's done the majority of the raising of our children, who both turned out extremely well. And so we found a good balance between the two of us.
John, in your book, The Entrepreneur Prescription by John Shufeldt, excellent book.
Thanks.
You have an acronym called SMART. Can you explain the SMART acronym, what it is, and
Sure, it's how goals, how one should look at goals. And so it's easy to say, oh, I've got a goal, I want to do something. But unless you have a goal that's specific, that's metric driven, that's manageable, that's time sensitive, it often fails. So how many times in my life I said, okay, I've got a goal to run a marathon someday, and I don't put any action behind it. So I don't say, okay, in the first week, I'm going to start running 1 mile every other day, and then do sprint work in between. And then the second week, I'm going to run 3 miles. Often goals just become wishes unless we put some data behind them. And that's what the SMART acronym tries to tries to discuss. It's putting some data, making it data driven, and giving you some things to strive for.
What does it stand for again?
You're gonna have to make me look it up because I always get the answer wrong.
Okay, we'll skip it then for now, okay? Sorry. Oh, you want me to look it up? I can.
I'm looking up right now, but I always
Actually, I have it earmarked. I have it earmarked. Hold on a minute. I got it somewhere. I got that one and MVP, the other one.
All right, here we go.
Smart.
Is specific.
Got it.
M is measurable. A is attainable, so something you can pull off. R is realistic, and T is timed.
Okay, I did read your book. The next question is MVP. What is it and how do we apply it?
So, many times when people start a project, they way overdo it at the get-go. And so they build this great thing that works very well that no one wants. And so we talk about this thing called the minimally viable product. And there's a book by Eric Ries called The Lean Startup where he talks about it much more eloquently than I do. But it's a way to come up with a product or a process or a service that gets people engaged and allows you to get instant customer feedback. So for example, 10 years ago, I started a virtual medicine company. And what I should have done is use FaceTime and said, okay, just FaceTime me if you have a medical issue, and jotted some notes down and e-prescribe them something or call it a prescription. But I probably went too far in the first iteration by having they had to download a software. They pulled up the video this way. And it worked pretty well. It was very functional, but it took me about a year to get to that product or that process or that service when I could have done it literally in 5 days using FaceTime and said, look, I'll just FaceTime you and we'll see if it works. I'll get some customer buy-in. I'll see what they like. I'll iterate along the way to get to the much better product. But instead it took me a while and then I had to start iterating. So this minimum viable project is kind of the thing you can go to market with, that it's not perfect, but you'll get a lot of customer feedback and the early adopters will like it and give you a lot of feedback about it.
Okay, sounds interesting. Sounds very practical. Tell us, this is something that piqued my interest, the one-page business plan. I can't really write a 40-page business plan. It's just not in my DNA. I'm sorry.
So you're smarter than I am because, there's that old saying, if you want me to write something long, give me a day. If you want me to write something short, give me a week. And so a one-page business plan forces you to get your thoughts down in a very concise manner using more bullet points and kind of hitting the high points. So, God, I've written in my share of 40-page business plans and longer in the past. And the problem is, it's like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Or like Rob knows, when you're flying, you always have a plan, but then all of a sudden an unexpected weather cell comes up or you have a chip light come on and your plans go to hell. And unless you're planning ahead, you become totally constrained by now what you're facing. So this one-page business plan allows you to get your thoughts down on paper, makes you think through all these variabilities that can happen. But when you get punched in the face out of the get-go, now you haven't spent weeks writing a 40-page business plan. You can make much faster pivots along the way.
What's in that? What's the crux of that one-page business plan? What do you include in it?
So it's really saying, okay, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? How you plan on solving it? What do you need to solve it? And that's everything from money to personnel. What are the barriers in place? What do you have in your back pocket? In other words, what skills or devices or market intelligence do you have that's going to help you solve it? And then a very brief kind of financial overview. You don't have to go, this month to month. You can be really quarter to quarter, but it allows you to determine, how long your runway is, how much basically cash you have in the bank, what your burn rate is, and see how long that you have at least cash flow to solve it.
Very good. So you had a little funny story in your book about the name of one of your clinics, AFUC.
Correct, AFUC.
Share that with us, would you?
So I started this first urgent care in '93, and there weren't really any urgent cares then, at least in the West Coast, and I didn't know what to call it. And we wanted to have this family practice component too, so people could say, well, they were, they're convenient and they were high quality, so we want to bring our family there and use it. repetitively, and we have mostly family practice physicians managing these. And so we called it Arizona Family and Urgent Care. Because another reason is a lot of the health plans did not know none of the health plans knew what urgent care was. So we basically got family practice contracts with them, but had a walk-in sort of service. And so when I heard the person answer the phone, "Thank you for calling Awfuck," I thought that may not be a name that's gonna be able to expand one past Arizona and two past the first couple of centers.
It may stick. It may stick, but not in the right way.
Not in the right way.
Tell me about your leadership. How you teach leadership, or what's important in leadership for business.
I think the hardest thing with leadership is the people you're trying to lead have to buy into your why. They have to buy into the vision of where you're trying to go. And my mantra as a leader is, I just literally on the phone today, we've got about 400 physicians and nurses around the country. And, what I say to them is, my job is to take care of you so you can take care of our patients. And I think as a leader, I'm still the old school belief it's first in, last out. You have to be willing and show them you're doing every hard job imaginable that you're asking them to do, because you have to set the standard right. So I'm here on the weekend, I'm a first in, last out sort of person, but I always say, here's my cell. If there's a problem, I want to know about it. I want to hear bad news. Call me and I'll do whatever I can to work with you to solve it. And then empowering them to solve it. So I'm the worst micromanager in the world because I don't want to do the small stuff. I trust you to do it. I'm happy to give advice, offer suggestions, tell you where I failed in the past, but I'm relying on you. That means I've tried to hire people.
You mentioned that you're old school, but the younger school has different ideas sometimes. How do you handle them?
I think
working hard.
The Gen Yers and Gen Xers, and I try to get on their page and understand where they're coming from. And many of them, what I admire about them, they're much smarter than I was. And God knows I would never get into medical school when applying against these kids today, and law school for that matter, because they're all smart as hell. But they also have a much better work-life balance than I think we did. We grew up in medicine. Medicine was their whole career. It perforated everything that we did. And I think the younger generation is much smarter and have found or try to find that balance.
A lot of the things in your book, The Entrepreneur Prescription, the business side, my dad was a businessman, and I heard a lot of things about implementation and execution. I heard a lot of that when I was growing up. So I just wanted to share that with you. So thank you for your Q&A. John, would you like to add anything else to our discussion before we open it up to the panel?
I think what I tell physicians often is we as physicians have the intelligence and talent and certainly the resilience and drive. If they want to open a business, that they should and could do it. That I've made every mistake in the book, and that if I can do it, literally anyone can do it. It really comes down to resilience, and it's the old Chinese proverb, fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Yes, I've also experienced failure in my life too, many times. Would anybody like to open up the discussion with a question?
Before I ask my question, and I don't mean to upstage you, Jim, but through LinkedIn, I found out that John hasn't just published a book, but he's also the founder of a chain of urgent care clinics called WeMD. Is that correct, John?
Yeah. So WeMD was virtual medicine, right? So we just sold it to Walmart about 3 months ago. So we had about 400 or 500 providers in all 50 states.
Yeah. So congratulations. And my one
Thanks.
question for you, John, is a very successful entrepreneur in healthcare, is how important is luck? What role does luck play in being successful?
If you would have asked me what was your secret, I would have told you luck and success. So I started NextCare in '93, grew it to about 60 clinics, $100 million, lasted 2 years after we had some private equity, got fired from my own company, kind of Steve Jobs-esque, although I never got invited back. And within 2 weeks started WeMD, because I thought I saw where healthcare was going virtually. And so, but for lucky enough being fired, I would not have started MeMD. And then growing MeMD, it took a long time because people weren't really buying into the concept. So really, but for the last couple of years and COVID, sadly enough, and but for Amazon getting heavy into healthcare, and but for being lucky enough to have Walmart find us, none of it would have worked. So there was some hard work that went in there, and there was some creativity and a lot of failure. But at the end of the day, it's luck and timing.
Yeah, being in the right place at the right time.
And a lot of perspiration.
A lot of perspiration, but
a lot of hard work.
Timing go a long way.
Yeah.
And being too dumb to quit.
Anybody have a question for Dr. John Shufeldt, lawyer, doctor, entrepreneur,
overcompensator,
starting many businesses, many huge businesses, very successful entrepreneur.
And as a classmate, I just want to add, not only was John our class president, but I didn't pay enough attention in med school to know if we even had this award given out for our class. But if we had such an award as most likely to succeed, I think everybody would have voted.
Thanks. Actually, we had a lot of really cool people in our class. Adam Singer started the first hospitalist company.
Yes.
And, we were just on that our reunion, and we have a lot of impressive people in our class.
We do. Yes. Yes.
And the only reason I was class president is because Rob convinced me, and he didn't want to do it the first time. So he did it. Rob did it the second year. I think second and fourth year, didn't you, Rob?
Yeah.
I got suckered into it.
Dr. Baruch, you have any questions that you want to share?
Well, just a comment, about finding your potential or realizing that you're not even coming close to your potential. There's sayings in addiction, you don't know how tough you are until that's all you have left. And it's amazing, when you're in from your ER work, you got every room full and 20 people in the lobby. And, some people just shut down and get overwhelmed. Some people say, motivate, circle the wagons, motivate the staff and say, let's keep moving. Let's get these people taken care of. And, that kind of mindset carries you when things are a lot more than you expected.
Dr. Shufeldt, just shifting a little bit, how did your perspective change after you got your law degree and your MBA degree in terms of how you've dealt with your businesses?
I think the thing that it did, so I try to go back to school every 10 years. And so I'll do a certificate program in one thing or another. And eventually I'm going to go to culinary school because I love to cook. But what I always call it is putting on a new pair of glasses, because there was many times after each one of these little iterations I do in different educational pursuits, I'm like, holy crap, how did I not see this? Because it's staring me right in the face. And they're always lead to business opportunities, law and medicine. I did some AI work. I'm like, oh my God, this is the next new thing that I need to look at and pursue. But it was just staring me in the face. But in law school, they teach you a much different way to think. And when I put on that set of glasses, I was like, oh, this is something I need to do, for example, and let me go out and do this. So a lot of it was stuff I probably already should have known, and probably stuff you guys already know, but it literally took me, 2.5 years in law school to figure out.
Well,
yeah, John, I also know a lot of people who have law degrees and business degrees, and not too many people who have both, as well as an MD. Tell me why they always seem to still stay as a doctor, and is it just the love of seeing patients and practicing medicine?
It's funny, right? So most of the physicians I know who went back to law school were shitty physicians and they're crappy attorneys. And so it's always rings in the back of my head. I'm like, oh God, which one am I? I'm probably both. But I love practicing medicine. And I went back to law school because I thought there's going to be some day when I don't want to spend nights, weekends, and holidays in the emergency department, even though I love it. So what could I do? Well, I have obviously we all have a lot of friends who are physicians, and some of us get ourselves in trouble. It'd be great to go out and help them sort through these legal issues. So I started defending them in front of the medical board. and realized it was a literally no-win endeavor, and I didn't like it much. And I felt like I was not helping these folks because some of them, as Rob kind of pointed out, some of them needed to get slapped around a little bit because they were really struggling personally and going off on using drugs and alcohol and what have you. And I can't help them in that. I can help them get out of their legal mess. So for me, it was, again, just looking at this, opening up my set, just putting on this new pair of glasses. But I love practicing medicine.
Yeah.
And I love taking care of people. And the great thing about emergency medicine, and you guys kind of alluded to it, is I walk out of these shifts, I work in an inner city ER on the reservation, and I walk out every day and go, I am so blessed and fortunate because I have a roof over my head, I've got wonderful children, got a beautiful wife, and what do I have to complain about? Because my worst day is 100 times better than most of my patients' best day. So, I'll be damned if I'm going to complain about anything small or large.
Tell us more. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I have a question on a very different topic. In terms of your opinion or thoughts on the Medicare system, and if it was all up to you, how would you change it or dispose of it, etc.?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's unfortunately a system we grew up with, so it works, albeit poorly. I think, although I was not a huge supporter of it at the time, looking back, I think, Obama probably had it right that there has to be some form of health care that everybody has access to. However, I don't think it should be universal because I'm a free market person. So I think there has to be some competition built in. I don't like the idea of universal health care, but I do think one way or another, we are all paying for everybody's health care. So wouldn't it be better to have them in some health plan and have them take some accountability for their own care, even though not everybody can? So how would I redesign it? I'd have a better access for people who are on the fringes of society that can't afford it. Because, in the emergency department, for example, when Obama was president, we had about 8% uninsured. Now we have about 15% uninsured. And whether they're uninsured or not, we are all paying for it, through higher premiums with our private health plans. And they're getting crappy care because they use the ER for their primary care. And I'm not a primary care doc. I'm good. I'm good when the chips are down. Longitudinal stuff, that's not me.
No, I
Yeah,
know.
if you-
50 years ago, I worked in an emergency room and in a big city, and same story. It was all the primary care was there, mixed in with a few emergency cases.
Yeah.
But thanks for your thoughts.
Oh, thank you.
Dr. Bob, you have a question?
Well, just a comment, you said I'm against universal health care. You can't have both. You can't have the fringes, the fringes uninsured without some type of universal coverage.
I guess that maybe I misspoke, Rob. It's not single payer. So I am for universal, but not single payer. So you're right. So thanks for the correction.
That's what I thought you meant. That makes sense.
Anyone else have a question, comment? No. Dr. Shufeldt, thank you so much. Anything else you want to add to the conversation?
No, thanks, guys. This was really a pleasure. Great to see you.
Hold this book up one more time. There you go.
Thanks. Mark and Joel, nice meeting you both.
Nice meeting you.
There's so many other things, John. Let me just say one other thing. There's so many other things that you talked about that I didn't touch. It just didn't have enough time. Like that, you were just talking about the tribal MD. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, tribal health.
Tribal health. I was really curious about that. I thought that was very exciting and interesting.
It's been a blast. I've done it for about 6 years now, and the indigenous folks in this country are generally very poorly taken care of and they're very marginalized. So being up there helping them has been it's been a huge blessing to try to make a small impact in their healthcare.
How does that work? I mean, most of them don't have insurance, right?
No, they all have insurance.
They all have insurance. Okay, great.
The last form of coverage they have is through the IHS, which is Health and Human Service. So they're all insured through that, but many of them are third-party payers or Medicaid or Medicare. But it's just, to have your guys' quality of healthcare that you deliver on the res is unheard of. And so, one of the things I did with the helicopters, I flew specialists up to a reservation in Phoenix every other week, and we had up to 10 specialists who go up there a month things I've never seen before: dermatology, cardiology, optho, hand. I mean,
Yeah.
very interesting.
That would be a cool one to make a documentary about. If you want to do it, I'm in.
Thanks.
That
It was actually very rewarding.
That
And
would
so
be an interesting
brought the patient-
documentary.
We brought the physicians to the patient and not the patients to the physician, because they literally live an hour and a half to 2 hours away from the city. They couldn't get back home if they got down there.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, John, Dr. John. Thanks everyone for participating. I enjoyed it. And maybe we'll do another sometime if you want to. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, John.
That's all.